because we have issues with people writing and when they do their Bible study, they think that Jesus hasn't said anything of meaning. We're going to start extrapolating some meaning. Okay, so Pam, would you grab your Bible and open up the Psalms? I want you to pick a psalm, and when I ask you to read, I just want you to read it, okay?
Any song?
Any psalm. Genesis chapter 1, verse 20. God said, "Let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the heavens." So God created the great whales, the great sea creatures. There actually says the great monsters, believe it or not, the monsters under the sea.
Like Leviathan?
Exactly. Leviathan was created on the fifth day. And every living creature that moves, with which its water swarms, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. God saw that it was good, and God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds multiply upon the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. So, what God created, what God established. So, all the principles were established. Everything was established. The groundwork, the fodder, the foundations for everything was established. Days 1, 2, and 3. Days 4, 5, and 6, he filled what he created. So he expounded on and expanded and filled things up. Days 4, 5, and 6. On the fifth day, when you hear flocks of birds, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Hordes of hundreds of millions of birds surrounding you. What is the first thing you notice?
One fire. A bird.
Moving right along. Pam, what's the first thing that you notice?
I usually notice their type or breed or their actions. Is their spirit at peace? Or are they anxious? You know, what's their color? And not always I bless them with Father's love.
I usually
What
notice
is-
that they're almost all the same type.
Isaac?
I think this-
What is the first way you
They-
notice the presence of a bird usually?
Poop.
No.
Oh,
You see their movement and you hear their chirping.
or their wings. It's the
Yeah, you
that
see their
the
movement.
sounds of-
So before you encounter a bird, what is the first way a birder usually picks up on the presence of a bird?
The sound or the movement.
The sound.
Yes.
So what did God establish on the fifth day? The sound.
Sound.
Without the fifth day. And this is teaching straight out of Genesis 1. There would be no sound. There would be no sense of timing. Because the birds and the sea creatures have incredible timing implications. Seasonal implications. There are no hummingbirds out there. Why not? Where are all the hummingbirds?
Central and South America.
Mexico.
Bingo. Central South America, Middle America. Because they have to move. Birds do what?
Migrate.
Bingo. Timing implications. No fifth day, no timing, no sound, no giver. Without the fifth day, there would be none of this. Pam, would you read?
Do not fret because of evildoers, nor be envious of the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. Want me
Read what you want.
to trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and feast on his faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, and trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. And he shall bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your justice as the noonday. Rest in the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because the man who brings wicked schemes to pass, because of the man who brings wicked scheme to pass. Cease from anger and forsake wrath, and do not fret. It only causes harm.
Interesting. There's a word in there for you, young one. I'll explain later.
No,
With-
I wasn't sure which
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
which one you meant.
Without the fifth day, There would be none of that. There would be no sound. Psalms is the book of sound. Psalms is the book of song. There would be no song. There would be no music. There would be no rapping. There would be no country. There would be no Christian. There would be no gospel. There would be no rock. There would be no metal. None of it. It would all cease to exist.
Couldn't even use an example like cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb because they wouldn't exist. You wouldn't even know. What does that mean?
Yeah. No communication. No relationships to manage and treat as resources because your friends are resourceful and they have a great wealth to pour into you. There'd be no whales. There'd be no whale song underneath the ocean. There'd be no fish to come up to greet you. There'd be no aquaria that have the fish that could interact with people's spirits. None of that. No dolphins, no orcas, no sound. No chattering, no interaction. Nothing. Everything would be a muted silence. What came out on the fifth day, what the Lord produced on the fifth day, is sound. There would be no capacity to scream, to shout, to laugh, to make funny noises, to do voices and impersonations. There'd be none of that. And yes, there are times when you need to have your silence. There are times when you need to get away from people because people can be irritating. There are times you need to get away from the loudness, but then there are times when you need it. When I was out on the Outer Banks and I was taking the ferry, one of the first things I noticed, all the gulls and the pelicans and whatnot, the seabirds that were out on that island as I was passing over to Hatteras. It was voraciously loud. Louder than the sound of a diesel engine. It's the sound that permeates. And the purpose of the sound for the fifth day, the sound portal, the star song, is to execute and teach you about the justice of God. Psalm 19, they declare his handiwork and everything else. One of the dynamics out of the Psalms, the book of sound. It says, day after day they pour forth speech. There is no place where their sound is not heard. The stars broadcast their light, and their light has a movement, and there's a frequency there, and there's a sound there, and they proclaim the justice of God and his capacity to execute. Without that, we would have no precursor or message or herald that would tell you that the Lord is going to act, which means it would also impact our hope.
Human race would die out.
From the lack of a message, the human race would die out because they would have no hope. They would wither. So, what's tied up in this 4-verse section? All of that. What's tied up in this 4-verse section? Mavericks, California, Half Moon Bay, Pillar Point. The only place where you can find big wave surfing in the lower 48. But there would be none of that sound. There would be none of...
Technically speaking, nobody would understand a word. Nobody would know anything. It'd just be nothing.
You wouldn't be able to hear their heart. There would no be sound. There would be no sound for Leviathan to twist because you wouldn't even be able to understand. Everything would be just dead silent. We need both. We need the silence. We need the loud noises. We need the din, the roar. We need the sound of the space shuttles taking off. We need sound. It's the sound of the bird song that causes the leaves to open up to take in the dew so that they can flourish.
Yes.
Without no sound, there would not be the voice of my wife teaching me in hushed tones about class aves, the birds. There wouldn't be the sound of your mother saying, "Hi," or my grandmother saying, "Hi, sweetheart." I can still hear her voice decades later. There wouldn't be the sound of people praising the Lord in the language of heaven, in their tongues. No percussion, no drums, no guitars, no people to impact music, no Eddie Van Halen, no Alex Van Halen, no Brian Johnson, no Bethel Music, no Jesus Culture, none of it. All gone by the wayside. No King David, who had to make music. And none of his 73 psalms that he wrote.
No Songs of Solomon.
No, none. And therefore no romance. That dynamic is completely cut off. So when we sit here and we read a passage and we think God is not speaking, even when he's not speaking, he's still speaking. This is why there are reams written on this first chapter. There are reams written on this first chapter. Victor Hamilton, in his commentary on Genesis, probably has about 20 to 40 pages on chapter 1 alone, because he broke it up into chapter 1 through 18 and chapter 19 through 50. So, just some thoughts there. Y'all be at peace, and we love you guys.